everyone, how are you? Good. So yeah, this is my first question and answer session. Don't think there's going to be any playing in this video, but we'll see. So I've got two questions. The first one's been broken down into like 7 separate parts, so we'll get to that. And then the second question, that might be a bit more involved. So the first question is from Harold Amsterdam, 1988. What's my occupation? Well, I mean, YouTube's really a hobby, so I can't call myself a full-time YouTuber. But professional life, I'm what you call a technical author. Basically, I write manuals and things like that. I'm actually between jobs at the moment. I had a phone call from an agent yesterday trying to line something up. So yeah, so at the moment I'm kind of looking for something. What's my age? I've just turned 53. I don't know if it shows. Do I look younger or older than that? I haven't gone grey yet. I don't consider myself sort of an old man, but anyway. Then the third part, first time you were playing the guitar. No, so by that I think are you asking how long have I been playing the guitar? I mean, the first time I sort of had to go playing the guitar, I was about 10 years old. A friend of mine had a sort of a dreadnought acoustic, and I was sort of just messing about on that. But playing the guitar seriously, I started when I was about 16, and I've been playing for about 37 years. I started on Christmas Day 1984, so I've covered quite a lot in that time, but it's kind of been a love-hate relationship. You know, it's a bit of a marriage, really. And you may find this, you know, that as you start playing, that your taste will change over the years. You might start because you're into a certain type of music, and then you grow out of it, and then you start getting into other things. And that's really what happened with me. So I've covered a lot of ground in that time. Any other instruments you play? If so, maybe show them here. It might be a little bit impractical to show them here. My other main instrument is the violin. Now, I mean, I haven't been playing that one as long. I mean, I actually was like what you might call an adult learner. But I was working in research at De Montfort University, which is just down the road from here, and they've got a development deal with the Philharmonia Orchestra. So basically, like the university orchestra, if you were getting that, you were playing alongside players from the Philharmonia, and that's really like getting in at the deep end, because you know you might consider, oh, I'm pretty all right on the violin, or or whatever, but then when you actually sit down and your desk partner is a world-class musician, then you've really got to up your game. And it was actually, that was one of the that was probably one of the hardest things I've ever had to do, but I learnt a lot from it, and I've actually been quite serious about the violin, and even to the point sometimes about whether it's an either or thing, whether just to concentrate on the violin or the guitar. So far on YouTube I haven't actually played violin yet, but I might get around to that. I don't know, just let me know what you think. Put that in the comments or whatever. I used to play brass at school. Started out on the cornet, and then they put me on the tenor horn, and then they put me on the E-flat bass. And that really wasn't going that way. It really wasn't going anywhere for me. I wasn't really learning. Just seemed to be playing like the same scales and the same pieces over and over again. So then that's when I started getting into the guitar. But that's moving more on to question 2. So, any instruments you want to learn? Well, I mean, I recently I picked up a flute, but I'm still learning on that. So I'm not I'm not I'm not going to even attempt to play that here, because you've got to work on your embouchure. To play the flute well, you have to develop that embouchure, and then it's fairly straightforward from then onwards. So that's something I like to play. I always really wanted to play the piano, like classical piano, you know, like playing Chopin and you know, maybe Beethoven sonatas and, you know, that kind of stuff. But it wasn't really practical. When we had the electric organ at home, but when I was little, I mean, you know, I started playing that, and it was hurting my fingers. So to begin with, you know, must have been about 4 or 5 when I started on the organ, and it was hurting my fingers, so I ended up stopping playing that. But we used to have a piano, and I used to find that was a lot softer. My brother, he actually carried it on, and now he's a really good jazz pianist, and you know, so that's something I wouldn't mind doing at some point. And then there's, you know, I mean, perhaps the whole orchestral range. I mean, like the cello, I'd love to have played the cello. I mean, I saw that film Hilary and Jackie. I don't know, it's all about the life of Jacqueline du Pré. And that makes you just want to fall in love with the cello. I mean, you fall in love with Jackie watching that film, but it really makes you want to play the cello. Trying to think if there's much else. I wouldn't have minded being a vocalist. I mean, like, you know, I used to really admire, you know, like people like Freddie Mercury and, you know, Ronnie James Dio and, you know, maybe Ian Gillan as well. You know, people who can just, you know, they're not afraid to, you know, like to be a frontman, and, you know, Bruce Dickinson as well. You know, people like that. That takes a certain skill and you know, a certain amount of courage as well. You know, so if you could meet. Alright, so I'm going to move on to the next question. Next part of the question. If you could meet and greet a musician from the past, who would that be? Well, the obvious answer would be something like Johann Sebastian Bach, but I think he might be a bit busy, and he might even be a bit grumpy, because, you know, I mean, he was very prolific. You know, he always had a lot to do. He had 20 children as well, so he might be a bit busy. And plus, he was, I mean, even though I can speak some German, I don't know whether I could speak Old German that fluently. And there's this whole thing about, like, moving further back in time, that how far back would you go before you have a conversation with somebody, before it's completely incomprehensible, because the language has changed so much. You know, I don't know if you ever thought about things like that. So maybe him. I wouldn't mind meeting Freddie, you know, just to talk, you know, talk music with him, and you know, like how does he do it? You know, how does he prepare for a performance and stuff like that? I mean, my main classical influence at the moment is Benjamin Britten, and I'd loads of questions I'd like to ask him. You know, because like you know, yeah, I mean, like how did he manage to keep going? Because like he was composing, you know, like you know, writing some of his best stuff in like the mid-70s, you know, like during like the height of like the prog rock stuff. And it, you know, makes you wonder, you know, well, did he ever think about, you know, like messing around with synthesizers or Moogs or Hammond organs, or did he ever think about, you know, like writing an electric guitar suite or something like that? You know, or why didn't he do that? You know, some of those sorts of questions I think could be quite good. And the final part of this question, any wish you have. I think you might mean, I'm assuming that's musically. For the channel, I wouldn't mind growing a little more, you know, reaching that magic 1,000 subscribers. That would be great. Like to get better as a musician as well, be a bit more rounded. I really want to get back in a group. I mean, rather than just being like a solo sort of multi-instrumentalist type person, I always feel I do better actually in a core group, and then because then you've got not only just like good sounding boards from everybody, but sometimes you're actually playing other people's music, and that influence of having another 2 or 3 people in the group, that actually brings out the best of you. It actually brings out things in your own playing which you're perhaps not immediately aware of. And I'd also, yeah, I really want to get out gigging again as well. I mean, like as I was saying, I play the violin, so I wouldn't mind doing just some solo violin stuff. Like doing the Bach sonatas and partitas and things like that. But it's just a case of planning. So at the moment, that's pretty much where I am. Right, moving on to question 2. This comes from Crow Black. I'd love to hear your guitar history and how you got started. Also what the future in music might hold for you, plans, etc. And then he also says, really enjoy your informative videos, keep up the good work, congrats on the 100 subs. Well, thanks very much. Well, as I was saying, I first started playing when I was 16. And I was in the school orchestra, really. And I was playing the E-flat bass, which is a big, cumbersome sort of tuba thing. And I wasn't all that popular at school either. I mean, you probably heard this story before, that like if you're bright and you work hard at school, that's seen as a negative. Whereas if you mess around and you're a bit thuggish, that makes you more popular. So there were a few things. I mean, like first of all, like my brother I mentioned, he was bringing home some like Deep Purple and Rainbow type stuff, things like that. And I was getting into Queen as well. There was first of all there was like the Milton Keynes concert that was on Channel 4, and that, I mean, this was shortly after that Hot Space album. So like a lot of people had they'd almost lost faith in Queen, because they were thinking, they've gone like all that sort of disco music, and but that Hot Space album was actually quite good. No, sorry, that Milton Keynes gig was actually that was actually quite good. So that that it showed that they still had that rock edge. So and then shortly after that, the Radio Gaga video, it just seemed to come out just from nowhere, and then then people started thinking about Queen again, and then the works came out, and then I think we were on holiday, and there was the Old Grey Whistle Test, which is like a music show that used to be on in England, and they showed this. They showed the Christmas 1975 concert, and I thought that was amazing. Bringing that sort of not only like a rock band, but like the classical elements and like the theatrical elements, because they were all dressing up in those Andrew Rhodes white garments, and like there was the lights and the smoke and everything. And I thought, yeah, this is really good. I'd like to be doing stuff like that. And then, of course, as I was saying, that because my brother was bringing home these Deep Purple and Rainbow things, that I was getting more into like the Rainbow stuff, especially like the Dio era stuff, or maybe some like the Jolene Turner stuff. But they had all these neoclassical influences in it. There's a lot of Bach, and you take like songs like Catch the Rainbow, obviously, and like the instrumental Weisheim, and obviously stuff like Stargazer and Gates of Babylon, and things like that, and the amount of classical music that was in that, and I was thinking, wow, this is amazing. And yet at the same time I'm playing in the school orchestra, and neither my brass teacher or the main music teacher, neither of them are teaching me how to play this kind of music. Then it's just unheard of. So then I sort of rebelled, and basically, I had a big row with my music teacher, and there was an additional factor as well, was because I wasn't practicing, because I just hated the instrument. Um, and so my dad did this breakdown of like the costs. He was saying that well, this is how much it's costing to rent each year. This is how much your music lessons are costing, and you're not practicing. If you actually add all that up, you could actually sort of buy yourself a guitar and an amplifier, or something else, or it's money that could be spent on other things, like like fixing the boiler, or getting spares for the car, or usual stuff like that. So that kind of made up my mind, and then I Christmas '84, I got my first electric guitar, which was a Hondo Les Paul, and a little amp, which is about the size of a cornflake packet, had a really bad mains hum on it, but it was enough, and it was enough to get me going. We had a couple of bands at school, although they weren't all that great. And then I had a phase where I started pursuing the more baroque music. So for a long time I was really into like Vivaldi. Then when I moved to Leicester, that was in '88. That's to do my first degree at what was then Leicester Polytechnic, but which is now De Montfort University. I started getting into all those Mike Varney, those Strapnel guys, especially Vinnie Moore, but like people like Joey Tafola, Marty Friedman. He had that Dragonfly Kiss record. Paul Gilbert, obviously, and then of course Mr. Big, Steve Vai, people like that. So then I started learning about that. Then I did a summer school in '91. I did my first summer school at the Guildhall School of Music in London, and they do this thing pretty much every year now. It's like a jazz and rock week where you can learn either jazz music or rock music, or anywhere in between. And that just opened my eyes up, and when I came back from that, I was thinking, I was quite serious about, is this something I want to pursue full time? But of course, when I was coming back, I still had to finish off my first degree, which is in electronics, and I was kind of losing interest in that, to be honest. I was getting more sort of into music and stuff, and there was a recession, but there used to be this thing called employment training, where like if you've been out of work for about a year or so, you can go on these employment training schemes where you're doing a job for your dole. That's what that is. So through that, I got on this scheme where I could teach music for a year. But anyway, that came to an end, and then and then we sort of started entering some of the wilderness years then, where I was making tapes to send to Mike Varney, and and all that usual stuff. But of course, it just went into a black hole. So went back to uni a few times, and then sort of around 2000ish, I was quite ill. It's to do with like I had like tummy problems, and I think since then it's been diagnosed as that sort of celiac disease, where I'm sort of sensitive to gluten and things like that. So I've had to change my lifestyle. So one of the things that the doctor recommended was, maybe electronics isn't for you. Maybe you need to try something else. So then I ended up studying English for a while, and I ended up actually doing better at English than I did in the engineering. So I ended up getting a first class honours in English, and then did an MA, and then I did some PhD work. But during that time, I was then getting more into sort of fusiony type stuff. Like first of all, like through like flamenco, and then sort of people like Aldemila, a lot of Paco, a lot of a guy called Tomatito, who you probably never heard of. And I got some label interest from an indie label, but really, I mean, it was, I don't know, it just didn't really work out. So so then, cutting a long story short, we get into around sort of 2018 when that Queen film came out, you know, that Bohemian Rhapsody, and I started getting back into sort of electric guitar again, and just thinking about, like, you know, all the music I used to be into, all those you know, why was it that when I started I was just hungry for everything and anything about the guitar? You know, I was saying like Queen and like Rainbow were probably my main influences, but I was also into people like Chris Rea or Snowy White or Level 42. You know, quite a lot of their stuff. And Gary Moore, you know, I'll tell you more about Gary Moore in a different video, but yeah, so I started getting back into guitar again, and then of course, like, you know, like lockdown started, and so I've been sort of like, over the last 18 months or so, I've just really just been just working just to get my chops up again, and it does help actually if you can play another instrument alongside the guitar, especially one where, like the violin, where you need to learn music. That will really help you, because like one feeds the other, you know, because the violin is so meticulous, you start bringing some of that attention to the guitar as well, and so you start being a little bit more refined about what you're doing. So I hope that's answered the questions properly. If you've got any comments, put them below. Any further comments as well, please put them below. If this works out, it might be a regular thing, but otherwise I'll see you soon. Alright, thanks for watching.